Welcome back, DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast, and there's a bit of an apology from myself and Archie for being a bit late last week. I know we didn't go out till Saturday. We are trying our best to make up for our lateness this week with a little bit of a bumper week ahead in the build-up to Barber Motorsports Park this weekend. We're going to start off with Louis Foster joining us on the show in a couple of minutes' time to reflect on the Indy 500 Open Test, as well as his first 3 races of his IndyCar career. And then we'll be back for hopefully a bonus episode tomorrow, which includes another exclusive interview for a driver that we haven't had on the show before. So very exciting for all of you. And we'll do a little bit of a Barber preview at the end of that episode. Looking forward to the action over this coming weekend. And we finally end another 3-week break, Archie. What a fantastic relief after another 3 weeks of churning out content.
I know, this feels like quite a nice way to I guess round out what has been a bit of a slog, more of a slog than off-seasoning was for us. This kind of 3 times 3 week in-seasoning periods. We do apologise for our lateness, but we thought we may as well, given there was some on-track action, unpick the open test on last week's episode. So if you want to kind of get the lowdown on what happened there, obviously we've got a couple of races now, but go back and listen to that episode. But yes, as we speak here, Louis has already joined us, and I will say it is another fantastic episode from someone who's kind of almost becoming like a temporary third host of the podcast occasionally.
And reflecting on that open test, there is no one better to speak to than somebody who was driving at that open test. So me and Archie will leave you for now and hand you over to Louis Foster, and we will catch you for hopefully another episode tomorrow. So we're joined yet again by a very good friend of the show, Louis Foster, who I don't think we've spoken to you since your first couple of races in the series, but we obviously speak to you on the back of the Indy 500 Open Test, sort of the first field for your car ahead of the month of May, and was your very first running on the Indianapolis Oval. So just reflect on the test for us. How did it go over the 2 days of running?
Really well. I think it's hard to judge, obviously. It's April testing. You know, we're so far away from the serious stuff. But look, we had a great test. I mean, Sato, up until he had his incident, you know, he was still P1 anyway, but he obviously had his incident, you know, and I was P3 in the quali running. All positive from my side. It's a very hard track to get a grip of, and the Rahal car performed really well. And I think we're all very confident going into it that we're not going to have a repeat of the last 3 years. There's been a lot of progress made in the offseason for us as a team. So I'm super looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great showing for us, and I think we need it. We deserve it as a team. You know, the boys and girls back at the shop have been working so hard all winter, and we bought a few upgrades to the car for this year as well, which hadn't been fitted to my car yet for that test, so there's still more pace to come. So, you know, I'm happy. It was a great experience to drive around that place. It's bloody quick. So yeah, you've really got to grab your balls and send it, but it's tricky, but it was great fun.
I think Graham was interviewed on the broadcast or the stream that they did maybe on the first day, and he was just speaking about, as a rookie there, how there's always kind of naturally those nerves. So I guess, how were you feeling going into the test? Obviously, as you say, your first taste of the oval at Indy, and then did it live up to those expectations that you kind of had in your head?
I would say it probably honestly exceeded them, which I would say is quite rare for myself. I very rarely get my expectations exceeded, which it did this time. It was like, for example, the ROP we do for rookies, I thought it'd be pretty easy, just dawdle around at a slower speed, but no, it was hard. Like, it was actually hard. Like, when I was being told the lap times I needed to do, I was pushing to get those lap times and trying to get out of it. So that was the first thing. And then the afternoon of day one, obviously we were on lower power as per usual, and that was fine. We, got to grips with the car a bit more, and I got used to being around other cars and seeing how that felt. But then, yeah, this is the first time in a very long time that they've turned us up to Q power that quickly. So I by the time we ran out on Thursday morning, Q trim, Q power, low downforce, top speeds, I'd only done, 40 laps, 50 laps. I'd only been in the car for, on track for maybe an hour, 2 hours of actual track running. So me and the other rookies alongside me were fully thrown in the deep end. So, to go from just learning the track the day before, get a night's sleep, wake up 9 a.m. the next morning, straight into a Q run was pretty difficult. It was scary, because, you enter turn 1 and turn 3 easily 10 mile an hour faster than the day before, which 10 mile an hour doesn't sound like a ton, but at those speeds, the difference between 220 and 230, I mean, we were pushing 240 actually, is very big. So it was very scary, and I definitely did not need coffee that morning because that woke me up quite well.
And you just mentioned rookie orientation just then, and you sort of said it was actually more difficult than you expected to get up to those speeds. I know it sounds crazy, but for us, from 210 miles an hour sounds incredibly slow at Indianapolis. So it's sort of weird to put those numbers into perspective. But I guess from your perspective, that's when you're hitting the track for the first time. So how is it to sort of have a program like that where you can progressively build the speed? And I guess it helps you sort of learn the track a little bit. I know it's just the four corners, which are all the same radius, but I guess it sort of helps you learn a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a great thing they do. It's definitely the right way to go about it, 100%. It's too dangerous of a track to just throw rookies on track with normal boosts and normal, it's a great way to go about it. And IndyCar does a good job of keeping us safe. And that's a very important part of it, is safety, right? The guys in IndyCar don't care how fast you are. They care if you're safe or not. So that's the main reason behind it, is making sure that you're able to do those laps at those speeds. So I think it's a great thing that they do. And yeah, like I said, it was trickier than I thought, for sure. The thing is, and everyone says the same every year when people do the rookie orientation, the reason why it's so hard is because the cars aren't built to go that slow. So it doesn't have the downforce, and it doesn't have the compression that it usually has. It's like, I don't know if there's something else I can describe it to, but it's almost like it's kind of like, I guess, trying to run at a certain speed, but doubling your pace of your feet, like running really quickly with instead of doing long strides, doing that, and it feels wrong. It feels weird. It's not right because that's not how you're supposed to run. It's a weird example. I don't know if that makes any sense, but bottom line is the cars aren't meant to go that slow, so it hasn't got the right amount of downforce. The setup isn't set up for those speeds. It's wanting more load. It's wanting more G's with the way the cars are set up. So even though you're going slower, it's a lot less stable. And I remember after my first run, never in my life have my forearms hurt so much with how much I was gripping the wheel, with how petrified I was. Because I was like, I don't know what the car's doing. It's super unstable, and I'm worried I'm going to crash. So I came in and my arms were so sore. Not because it's physical. It's not a physical oval at all, but just from how much I was gripping the wheel in nervousness. But yeah, we got through it fine. So, I was happy to take that box and then get in some proper running.
So I guess you sort of go from going almost too slowly one day, and the next day you've got the boost turned up and you're suddenly pushing 240 miles an hour, 230 that time. So how did that feel like in comparison to the previous day? And I guess sort of the other side of it is, how useful is it for you, where sort of other rookies wouldn't usually get this boost prior to May, and you've actually got it a couple of days earlier?
No, super insightful, obviously. And it was great that we got to do it and get a taste of it. And great that we put a good lap time in as well. I mean, that's all credit to the team at the end of the day. The Speedway is massively a team game. It's the biggest team game of the year. I view it as there's tracks that a driver can make a big difference, and there's tracks that teamwork and being gelled makes a big difference. And this is definitely one of those tracks where you can be a good driver, but if you haven't got the team around you that are working on all cylinders, you ain't going to do well. It's simple as that. You need to have the car behind you. You need the team behind you. It needs to all gel. So it's all credit to them, really. I'm just the monkey that sits in the car and tries to stay flat. But honestly, it was great fun. The big thing that I found was people always ask me quite a lot after, how does it feel going 240? And the honest answer is, you don't really think about it. You don't think, oh, I'm going this fast. Because I would say speed is quite relative, and it's a big oval. So it's quite wide. It's very long, straight. It's very big, the whole track in general. So the way I explained it was if you're doing 70 mile an hour on the motorway, it feels normal. But you go and do 70 mile an hour down a country lane, very different, right? So it's kind of like that, where you don't really feel that you're going super fast until you get to the corner. And you're approaching this 90-degree corner, which isn't particularly banked compared to other ovals we go to. And you're like, so you're telling me this is flat at 240. And you just have to trust it. And it's the craziest thing in the world. And it does stick and it does set. But the speed at which the apex curb appears and disappears is like that. All other tracks you go to, you'll pick up an apex curb, you'll enter towards it, you'll drive towards it, you'll come down to it, and then you'll it kind of, there's like an order in which it goes. But here, you don't have time. Like, by the time your brain realizes you've seen it, you're already past it. Like, it just appears and disappears. Because you're going so fast. I mean, yeah, we cover, I think, like 100 feet a second or something like that. So it's I don't know what that is in non-freedom units, but it's quick. But yeah, it's super cool, and my mum's very scared for me. Put it that way.
Is there a point where you kind of allow yourself, whether you're in the car or before you get in the car, or maybe actually after you get out of the car, where you allow yourself to actually think of the speeds? You allow yourself to think of, I don't know, because the walls are so close. I mean, you see from the broadcast how close the cars are getting to the walls. You kind of hold your breath, and that's watching from 5,000 miles away. So, like, how do you block that out? That, because it's obviously going to be daunting, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you're not an IndyCar driver. You haven't got some kind of screw loose in your head. Like, that's, like, bluntly, that's how it is. And the one thing that I did think, if I'm honest with you, after I'd done my run the next day and I'd kind of come home and reset, and I did think, you know what, like, if I'm a Scott Dixon or Graham Rahal, had a successful IndyCar career, and I've got wife and kids at home, I don't know whether I would do this. So I give them a lot of respect to have the drive to still do it, because it is dangerous and it's stupidly fast. But look, at the end of the day, they'll have the same mindset as me, because we all do. You don't think about the speed. You can't sit there and think, what if I crash? Because as soon as you're thinking that, you ain't going to be quick. If you crash, you crash. You know what I mean? It's part of the job. You know, your risk. I mean, that is a track where you are literally risking your life to compete. Simple as that. You know, the other circuits are debatable. You know, safety standards in IndyCar have improved immensely over the last 20 years or so. So most of the tracks you go to, you should be fine. There's always never fully safe, but you should be okay. Most accidents, but 100% that's a track there where if the incident's slightly wrong, you hit the wall the wrong way, there's only so much a tub can do, right? So yeah, it is scary, but again, you just can't think about it. I don't think about it. It's part of the job, and I love doing it. It's what I love to do at the end of the day. So I don't think of it that way.
I know we've kind of spoken about ovals with you before from the junior categories, and you've kind of already answered what I was going to ask about the sensations of going 230, 240 miles per hour. But I'll kind of adapt the question a bit, because you mentioned, you know, if the car, maybe the balance isn't quite there and it feels a bit loose. What is that like when you are on that track in particular?
Well, I wouldn't know yet, because we didn't get loose. Trust me, because if we were loose on the box, but yeah, I'm sure there being loose is a lot scarier. I mean, it's scary at any oval, man. Like, I remember in 2023 in Indy Next at Iowa, we messed up the setup so bad for the race, and I was way too loose. And even there, I was just hanging on for dear life and petrified of hitting the wall. And it just wasn't. I mean, you just have to. If you're in a race situation and you're too loose, you can't do a lot about it. You've got tools in the car with weight jacker and bars to try and adjust, and then you can adjust your driving slightly. But again, there's so little you can do on an oval. That's why it's so important. So if you're in practice and you go out there and it's loose, just box. There's no need to try and push it. You just come in and change your setup. That's the big thing that I found with ovals is if you're not happy with the setup, just come box and change it. I mean, usually on an oval, you'll do like 4 or 5 laps, come in, do a change, 4 or 5 laps, come in, do a change. You're just changing the car all the time to find the sweet spot, because like I said, the setup is so important. It's so important. It's also important on road and street courses, but you can drive around it as a driver. You can change your driving style. But ovals, you can't turn later for the corner or earlier, really, maybe a little bit, you know, and it's still the same rate. You can't really do a lot. You just have to deal with what you've got. So the best way to do it is to make sure what you've got is perfect. And
you mentioned kind of the tools and the in-cockpit adjustments. Is that something that you got much practice of last week? Yeah, so obviously bars, we had an Indy Lights, or Indy Next, sorry. So that I'm used to anyway. The weight jacker I'm still getting used to. I understand obviously how it works and what part of the corner is better. It's better to use it for. Obviously the bars work
Basically, the bars are better to use later in the corner, whereas the weight jacket is better to use on the entry. It works pretty similarly. I mean, I just simplify it down. Click it left to give me more front, click it right to give me less front. It's pretty simple. It's very effective. It's a very effective tool. And then obviously also during qualifying, we've got the speed, the fast jacker, where it fully plants the right rear down to the ground on the straights to give us more top end, and then you click it back up and as long as you remember to click it back up, you won't crash. I know Kyle made a mistake there on the test, which is it's very easily done, to be fair. But you take it back up, and then it comes back to the front, and you then have front end grip for the corner. So that's an interesting one for sure, because you feel the car just like sit, and then you come to the corner and then it stands up again, and it's a bit nerve-wracking a little bit, but it's a cool feature for sure.
So back here in non-freedom land, all ovals are exactly the same. Indianapolis to Bristol, they're all exactly the same over here. So you've tested Gateway, you've tested Nashville as well, and IndyCar. So how does that Indianapolis actually compare to sort of those other ovals that you've tested at?
I think the key difference is obviously A, the speed, but B, also the aero kit. So both those two ovals I ran, you run with the normal aero kit. So you've got quite a lot of downforce on the car, whereas here at the Speedway, we run the Speedway wings, which, they're just flat, basically, one element wings on both front and rear. So a lot less downforce, much higher speeds, much less drag. And I mean, it's a super speedway at the end of the day. It's different. I mean, I know Nashville is Nashville Super Speedway, but it's compared to Indy, it's not a super speedway. So I would say that those two ovals prior, Gateway and Nashville, it felt quite similar to the next car, honestly. The Indy car these days is quite heavy. And a bit not a boat, but it is quite heavy to drive, and it does kill the mid-corner speed a little bit. So, to be honest with you, when I went to Nashville for the first time, I'd done 3-4 laps, and I was like, right, well, it's basically just a bit faster than the lights car, because the lap times aren't too dissimilar. I mean, Milwaukee last year, if I had qualified on the IndyCar grid in my lights car, I would have qualified 24 out of 27. So that tells you one thing, that the difference isn't huge. But at the 500 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, that's not the story whatsoever. It's ridiculously fast compared to the lights car. It clowns on the lights car there. So yeah, I would say just raw speed. I mean, simple as that. It's just so much faster.
Obviously, a lot of what we've spoken about so far has been the speed side of it, but come May 25th, it's all going to be about the traffic running and how you deal with the traffic. So how comfortable did you sort of feel in the pack, and how different is that to anything else you've ever experienced?
Yeah, very different, obviously. It's a lot of turbulent air. The one thing that I learned is how far back you're getting a tow from. It's absolutely insane. If you see a car, you're exiting turn 3 or turn 4, and there's a car turning to turn 1, like all the way down the other end of the straight, you're getting a tow from that. And to me, that was insane. How far away a car can be for it to affect the air where you are is insane. Because usually, in most of the tracks, it's a couple seconds maybe. Anything more than 3-4 seconds, you don't really get much. But if you look at what they consider a no tow lap time, it's anything less than 8 seconds, I believe, is a tow, which to me is insane. 8 seconds is half the track away, but it's just the speeds you're going. So yeah, when you're in a line of 7 cars within those 8 seconds, things get tricky for sure. We didn't have a great run in the traffic running, to be honest with you. I wasn't happy with the car, but we know why, and we've got adjustments for that. And Graham tested out an item afterwards, and he liked it compared to what we ran beforehand. So we've got a direction for that, which is good. But I struggled for sure. But I think that was mainly set up related. But we've got tons of practice to do that anyway. Obviously, I think someone told me the other day that we practice more for the 500 than we do for every other race of the calendar combined. So we've got time. So
yeah, I mean, I'm kind of bored of talking about the hybrid, but I feel like we kind of need to just ask, because obviously you mentioned the weight, and this was the first time running there. Obviously, there was the test back in October, but for the entire field with the hybrid. So I guess both in terms of qualifying running, and then also when you were running, not the qualifying runs, essentially, how useful a tool actually was it, or did you find it?
So in qualifying, obviously you're not regenning at all because you're flat for 4 laps, or hopefully you're not regenning. In quality, yeah. I mean, it bumps up the speed for sure. Like, most likely, we'll see what other teams use strategy-wise, but it seems like people are going to be using it on third and fourth lap, probably bursts. You can only get 2 bursts out of it, really. So, you'll use it probably, depending on wind direction, exit of turn 3 on lap 3 and 4. Pretty much, that's what it'll most likely be. So for quality, yeah, it helps the lap time a little bit, but I haven't seen a back-to-back comparison. I don't know if I think it's probably a tiny bit slower, just with the weight. And I don't know, I think probably it's about a mile an hour gain for a lap with that hybrid, maybe, roughly. I haven't looked at the data fully yet. And I will analyze that more as we get closer. But for the race, it is very different. The hybrid is going to play a huge tool in the race for sure. The way I view it, right, is, if I'm honest, I think the person that will win the race at the 500, obviously there's certain cars that are going to be particularly fast, but when you get to those last 4 or 5 laps, let's say you're Pato O'Ward last year in that situation. If he was able to overtake Joseph without using his hybrid, then he would have that to defend. Obviously, at that stage of the race, those boys are flat. You're flat right at the end. So you won't be regenerating at all. So you won't have, if you use it to overtake someone on the last couple of laps, you won't regen because you're not going to be lifting. Then you've got nothing to defend with, right? So it's almost like a push to defend in a way with the hybrid. So I think that's going to be very important at the end of the race for basically the win, more or less, right? And even back further in the pack, it's super helpful. You make a small mistake, you have to lift. You lose so much speed and you lose that momentum. That hybrid is like a get out of jail free card almost. You can use it to overtake someone, or you can use it to boost your speed again if you make a mistake. So it's going to play a big part. And like I said, I think it will play a big part in the overall winner, because I think whoever on those last 2 laps, if it's a close race like it has been the last couple of years, I think the person who manages that hybrid better will win the race, in my opinion.
And then just zooming a little bit more into, obviously, the teams test, they have, as we all know, struggled a little bit in recent years at Indy. Do you kind of know where the shortcomings were, or maybe what the biggest things were that you as a team were working on during this test, as much as you can divulge, of course?
Yeah. Well, firstly, we brought upgrades to the car, just general stuff that is performance gaining for sure. That's the first thing. So just straight up speed of the car. It just goes faster. Simple as that. Balance wise, we've got some fresh faces, some new engineers at the team who have brought some experience from other teams that's helped as well. But we were trying a lot of different things during the test, and I mean, we didn't talk a lot, or at least I wasn't aware too much of what the issues were last year, I guess. I mean, I am aware of where some of our shortcomings are on the ovals, and there's still things we need to work on for sure. Some of those issues are still occurring. Like, I mean, at my tests, the last 2 oval tests and also a bit at Indy, kind of we struggle with entry and stability a lot, which isn't fun on an oval, especially at Indy. So we're still working on that, and that's still not a ticked box yet. We're trying to find a sweet spot to make that work. But I think just generally the car's preparation and the upgrades that we've brought has been the majority of pace. Now, I haven't obviously done this test before. I don't know how much to look into it, but to give you some insight, Graham was very, very happy. And he was very convinced that, this says something. This isn't just like a wonderful test for Rahal, and then all of a sudden we're going to be crap in May. He's very confident. And so am I, honestly. But obviously he's been through this before, so he knows what it's like. And, he's very happy. So that's a good sign for me. Obviously, I haven't experienced it before, so I don't know what to think. But if he's happy, I'm happy.
And Graham's very honest as well. Like, he will usually speak his mind.
Yeah, no, and that's what I mean. He does speak his mind, and he was, I chatted to him afterwards, and I was like, what do you think? Do you think other teams are sandbagging, or do you think, like, what's the verdict? And he was like, no, I think we're good. So, look, like we said, we've put a lot of work in the off season, and it's starting to pay off.
Because your pace on boost day was pretty similar to what the team were doing last year come qualifying day, and I guess we still got to trim and all that stuff still. So,
well, yeah, we've still got to trim. There's a part of the upgrade package that we brought that wasn't on my car for the test. It was on all the other cars, but not mine. So there's more pace in that. Also, we weren't running our race engine either. We've got a new engine for the 500 as well. So there's a lot of time in that lap time for sure.
And like, come May, you've obviously got an extra teammate in Takuma Sato, who certainly isn't a bad teammate to have around Indianapolis, I guess. And Graham Rahal's had several good runs there as well. So have you learned much from them so far? Is there any sort of big takeaways you've got from them, or is it still quite early days so far?
No, I mean, for sure. Takuma was massively helpful to me on the test, actually. We went around the track on a golf cart, and he kind of went corner by corner explaining, his feeling of each corner, because although each corner is the same, it's not. They all handle differently. The wind direction is usually in a similar direction as well. It tends to be a bit of a tailwind out of 3. But that can change, obviously. And he was just giving me kind of tips of the trade, things to look out for, things to think about. And then, watching him be able to drive, watch his onboard, look at his data, understand how he does what he does, he's super impressive. I mean, he's very talented at that track, and he knows what he's doing. So to learn from him there is great. Obviously, Graham's got a ton of experience there as well. He's been helpful with everything, not even just the 500, but the whole season so far. He's a great person to lean on, and he's a super, super nice guy. So, I feel very lucky that I've got a lot of experience around me. It's very helpful for me as a rookie. I can lean on these guys when I don't know what I'm doing. But it was a good test for us. Obviously, it's a shame what happened with Sato in his car. Hopefully the boys can get something sorted, because he was mighty quick. So I'm sure that they'll figure something out, and he'll be back on form when we come to May.
And now kind of pivoting away from the test and looking at the wider season so far, how do you feel it's gone? Obviously 3 races in, 2 actual races, obviously given what happened in St. Pete, but happy so far? Yeah,
I mean, other people seem more pleased than I am. I get a lot of comments of people say, like family or friends or people within the team are very pleased with certain performances that I've done, especially at Long Beach. That was our only so far good proper race. We had issues we also had issues in thermal as well with the car, with my cockpit, that meant that I was borderline undrivable. So the first proper race I've actually been able to drive the thing was Long Beach. But bluntly, no, I want to do better. I'm not happy with 16th. I want to do better than that. So, there's progress there, and I'm happy that I'm seeing progress, and I'm confident that we're going to get further, and I'm not worried about it. I know we're on the right path. And I know there's more in myself. We've yet to have a good quali followed by a good race. And I think once we start getting that consistency, I mean, the first 2 rounds there was issues that were out of our control. And then at Long Beach, we messed up quali, simple as that. We did the wrong strategy basically for quali. And that meant we qualified way worse than we should have. So that was a little bit frustrating, because I think we would have definitely been fighting for a top 10 there. Had we qualified, I think we would have probably got through to the fast 12. But bluntly, no, not yet. I'm not happy yet. There's more to come. There's more pace to come. There's better results to come. But is the right path. So I'm not disappointed, but I'm not happy. I'm in the middle. We're getting there. And once we start knocking on the door of top 10s and start doing that kind of stuff, that's when I'll start being a bit more happy and, be generally, I guess, happy with my rookie year. I put a lot of, not pressure on myself, but I set myself to a high standard, and I don't feel like I've done the best job so far. I know I can do better. But it's just very hard in IndyCar. It's obviously super competitive. So we'll get there. I know we will. Just need to keep plugging away and keep doing our thing.
Well, I guess in some ways, it's obviously your first few races in the car, and it's tracks you haven't run on in NXT as well. So it is naturally going to be sort of the most difficult races for you for the year. So reflecting on these 3 races, stepping up from next, is there anything specifically that you've maybe found a bit different to what you expected so far?
The biggest thing I found is I haven't got a clue what's going on in the race. It's so weird. Obviously, as being a rookie, you don't understand the races as well, and I'm sure over time I'll get it more. But in my entire career, there's no pit stops, and if there's a car in front of you, he's in front of me. I've got to overtake him, and everyone's closer, and it's simple. It's one dimensional. But in this, man, someone will box, and then you'll never see them again. And you're like, well, he was in front of me. How have I never seen him again? Where's he gone? Did they just quit? It's the weirdest thing ever. And then, at Long Beach, after lap 10, I only ever saw 4 or 5 other cars. I saw Jacob Abel when I lapped him. I saw, I was behind Armstrong for most of the race. And then I saw Rahal, and then at the end, I was catching up to Rossi and behind him at the end. Like, I saw like 4 cars the entire race, pretty much. So it's just so weird because you don't really know what's going on. You're just driving as fast as you can, and what happens. You don't know what other strategies people are on. Like, you don't know where people are. Like, you're just right. There's so much going on that you can't have all that information. You don't need to have it. So I guess that's something that I found is just honestly just confusion of what the hell's going on. It's just there's so much to it. I mean, and that's where the guys who do the strategy make the big bucks, because it's confusing, and they it's a hard job to do. So that's the main difference, I would say, is just and they're so long. They're such long races, I tried to download a race of mine like recently. It took like 2 hours. It was just like a 4 gigabyte file. I was like, really? But anyway, so it's it's different in that sense. But the qualifying and the practice and that whole procedure is the exact same as IndyNext, because we do the exact same 2 practices, qualify. It's all the same. So that side of things is similar. Just the race is just so different.
And sort of on strategy, I know a lot of the more senior drivers have much more of a say, but obviously you coming in as a rookie, sort of how much input do you have into the strategy, or is it more of a case of, oh, here's what you've got to do, I'm just going to execute it?
Well, there's guys at each team that are full-time employed pretty much to figure out what's best to do, right? So realistically, I ain't going to know better than them, am I? So, there's time. I mean, before the race at Long Beach, I had a gut feeling, to be honest with you, that I wanted to be on the alternate strategy, which ended up being the correct one. And had we been on that one, we would have definitely finished top 10. I mean, look where Kiffin and Stingray finished, right? And Stingray was just in front of me, and we had a lot more pace. So, I think had we done that, we would have obviously finished better. But again, at the end of the day, it's hard. I mean, I know people like Scott and I don't know, Power and Graham are able to kind of do that on the fly, but they've been in so many IndyCar races and they understand how it works better. Simple as that. I don't. I just get told what to do and I do it. I'm sure as time goes by and I understand it more, I'll be able to kind of get an understanding of what's happening in the race a bit better than I currently do, and be able to make more calls myself. But look, at the end of the day, whilst it's super impressive that, Scott and people like that can like almost call their own strategies, in my view is they shouldn't have to. You should have the right people behind the stand, and you should be focusing on your sole job, which is driving the car. You don't want to have your driver distracted with strategies, because that's not what they're there to do, right? So whilst it's cool and all, I still think that the best way to go about it is to have the right people behind the wall that know all the information. They can always make a better decision, in my opinion, usually. So it would be cool to run my own strategy, but we'd probably finish last. So
brilliant. I guess you were kind of not negative, but obviously you're wanting more from the starts of the season. But looking at the positives, what do you think is maybe one thing or a few things that have gone maybe most well so far? Some of the biggest positive points from these first 3 rounds?
Well, I think honestly, whenever we've had stuff in our control, so I mean, I'm if you completely ignore the race at both St. Pete and Thermal, where we had obviously crashed out and got taken out in the first race at St. Pete, and then had an issue with my belt, which made it undrivable for me in Thermal. If you ignore those 2, honestly, they've all gone quite well. Quali at both the first 2 races went really well, especially Thermal, making it through to the Fast 12. Quali at Long Beach obviously didn't go super well, but that was purely just because we did the wrong strategy. We made the mistake there. We should have gone with 2 reds instead of 1 set. And then, the race at Long Beach was really, really strong. We had great pace. At the end, especially the last stint, we were like one of the fastest cars on track the entire stint. It was really strong pace. So yeah, whilst I'm disappointed we haven't had a solid result yet, that all of the ingredients are there, right? We've got the speed in qualifying, and now I've done a full proper race, and I understand how it goes, and the pit stops have been good. Pace in the race was good at Long Beach. So I mean, there isn't I wouldn't say there's tons of negatives really. I would just say that it hasn't clicked yet. We're still waiting for it to click. And I think once it clicks, that's going to be when we stop putting in some serious results.
Because I was actually going to say, where do you feel like the biggest gains need to be made? But is it that disappointment or displeasure comes more from the results side rather than the actual performance of things that, as you say, have been in your control?
I think a bit of both. I mean, there's times where, I could have done a better job for sure. There's times where we just got unlucky. I think the disappointment just purely, or the displeasure comes from the fact that I know we can do better. Like, I know what the team's capable of. I know what I'm capable of. And it needs to click. And that's it. That's as simple as that. It's similar to like my second year in NXT. It just clicks. And once it clicks, you then get into a rhythm and you get into a bit more of a flow state, and weekends they merge into one almost. And you're just cracking out races and results, not having to really think about it. Because right now we're really having to, especially I'm having to think about what I'm doing and focus really intently. When you start getting up to the point where you're a lot more comfortable and everything's gelling better, you honestly don't think about that stuff as much because it's all natural. And we're getting there. I'm hoping soon we can have a good result. Barber's been a strong track for Ray Hall. So has IMS as well, and Detroit. So the next three races, we've got pretty high hopes for a solid result. But it's hard to point a finger on exactly what it is. It's just, like I said, it's more of just it needs to all come together, and then I think we'll be golden.
Obviously, last couple of weeks, sort of the news in the team has been Jay Fry obviously coming to the team from IndyCar. So sort of how have you felt his presence so far, and how has it been with Jay and the team?
Yeah, I mean, he's been great. I knew Jay decently well from when he was running IndyCar, got on well with him. So to have him on board is great. He's super hands-on. He's at every test, every race, always around in all the meetings and is fully aware of what's going on. So, to have someone that experienced with how IndyCar works is great. And he's a key addition to the team for sure.
And Barber next, obviously. And I remember your weekend there last year. It was pretty much just everything was going wrong. And then you just had an absolute heck of a drive through the field. So what are your memories of that weekend? And then obviously the thoughts about the weekend ahead as well, your first race there in IndyCar.
Well, yeah, Barber hasn't been nice to me, I won't lie. Year before, we had a mechanical issue, which caused me to crash out of the race in 23. And then, in last year, we had an electrical issue, which was when the attenuator for the rear wing was put on, it pinched a wire. And then that wire was short-circuiting on the tub. It's super easily done, but it's one of those things. It's one of those things that you just happens. It sucks, and it's no one's fault really. It's just a mistake, and they're very hard to find. So yeah, we didn't practice. We did like 3 laps in practice, and then we didn't qualify either. We just got out for the race, barely. And then I hadn't done 3 laps in the weekend. I'd just thrown on my teammates' setup. I was like, screw it, give me that. Give me a bit more front wing so I can drive forward. It was a great race. I mean, definitely one of my favorites. It's one of the hardest tracks to pass at. Managing to go from 21st to 5th it's a cool on board. So, fond memories of the race last year for sure. Definitely one of my favorite races I've ever done in my career. So, going to this year in IndyCar, obviously speeds are a lot higher, very different, more competitive, much more difficult. So, I'm kind of going in with no expectations. We'll see how it goes. Barber definitely, everyone loves Barber, but it's one of the tracks that it's not my favorite for sure. I don't hate it. It's a fun track. It's cool and it's unique. But it's not my favorite. So we'll see how it goes. We've obviously had a test there a few months ago now, actually. And that went quite well. So I'm hoping that we can have a strong result. Carl's usually been good there, like I said. So we'll see how it goes.
And you've obviously gone from the 500 Open test, but to another road course, and you go to sort of a very stop-starty road course, or IMS road course, compared to sort of the flowing edge of Barber. Then back to the 500, then you go to the narrow streets in Detroit, and these are pretty much all in consecutive weeks. So what sort of the shift like for you, and maybe the change in mentality every single week when you have so much racing week on week on week at the minute?
There's no change of mentality. I mean, you get in a car and you drive as fast as you can. It doesn't matter if it's a street circuit, road course, or an oval. It doesn't matter. So, yeah, I mean, it allows us to stay in the zone, having consecutive races. It's tiring on the mind and body for sure. Definitely going to take like a cold plunge after the Barber race because, we only have 4 days to recover after that till we're back on track at the Speedway for the road course. So yeah, that's definitely a key part of being an IndyCar driver is recovery, being able to recover. So that's a big part of it. But yeah, there's no change in mentality. Again, you just go out there and drive as best you can and do your job. Simple as that. So I think it's fun that we get to drive such different circuits in IndyCar. I mean, Formula One, they've got some street courses and some road courses, but even their street courses, man, they're basically road courses. They're so flat and the only one that's really difficult is probably Monaco and Jeddah, right? So,
Jeddah isn't a street track either, really, is it?
It's a road course, but they've just put walls next to it. It's like it's dangerous and it's fast. So it looks fun, but like it's not like an American street course because it's an actual street. So it's bumpy. But I love the difference of tracks in IndyCar. It makes it fresh and new. Like going from a place like Barber, super twisty and fast, and then to IMS with all its braking zones, which is really fun. Then to the Speedway, and then to Detroit, which is the bumpiest track in the world. And you go see a chiropractor afterwards, but it's a great race. It's fun. So I think it's great. It keeps it fresh and exciting for not only the fans, but also the drivers.
And to end off, Louis, I think we all need to know, where's the moustache? What's the inspiration for it this year? It's been a huge visual change for you.
Honestly, man, I just got bored one day, and I was like, you know what? Let's see how it goes. And then I got a lot of compliments. I don't know whether or not I'm going to keep it. I don't know. It's one of those things. I'm just a little bit, I guess I was like, you know what? Why not? Try it out. So it might stay for a while longer. It might disappear at some point in the near future. Who knows? It depends if I wake up one day and want to shave it off.
Your hair's going a little bit too. You're going to get the mullet soon as well to fully complete the American look.
I will not be doing a mullet. My hair has, but I haven't cut it in a while. I'm going through an identity crisis. That's what it is.
Completely different to a year ago. It's like Connor Daly went through his period, changing hair every other week. So
yeah. No, I won't. I promise I won't be that bad. But we'll. I don't know, man. Just having fun, I guess.
American lifestyle.
America, baby.
Anyway, Louis, that's all we got for you. Obviously, Barber this weekend, so wishing you the best of luck at a track. As you said, the team haven't gone too badly the last couple of years, and as you said, gets very busy. So wish you best of luck from Indy Road Course 500 qualifying. Let's hope you make it. Indy 500, Detroit, and onwards for the rest of the year. So thanks for your time again, and hoping to catch up with you soon.